All right, let's dive in. So you've definitely heard of Bitcoin, and you've probably heard of Ethereum, right? But beyond those two giants, there is this huge, wild, chaotic world of other cryptocurrencies. Today, we are jumping headfirst into that world of so-called altcoins to figure out what they are, and more importantly, how you can navigate them without getting burned.
And when I say wild, I am not kidding. There are over 20,000 different cryptocurrencies out there. 20,000. You know, some of them are genuinely trying to change the world. Most of them, though, let's be honest, they're completely worthless.
And that's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Figuring this all out is a mix of discovery and straight-up survival. How do you find the projects that actually have real potential? And just as critically, how do you dodge the ones that are just designed to drain your bank account? Okay, so before we can even start to sort the good from the bad, we've got to get our definitions straight. What exactly is an altcoin anyway?
Yep, it's really that simple. The term just means alternative coin. See, Bitcoin was the first one on the block, the original. So literally everything else that came after it, from Ethereum all the way down to the most random coin you can imagine, is technically an altcoin.
Now, the legitimate altcoins out there aren't just trying to be cheap copies of Bitcoin. They were actually built to tackle different problems. Think about it. Bitcoin is amazing as a store of value, kind of like digital gold. But it's not so great for things like super fast payments, or for running complicated apps, or for guaranteeing total privacy. And that's the gap these altcoins are trying to fill.
And this right here, this is the absolute key to understanding this space. The quality gap is just enormous. On one end of the spectrum, you have these billion-dollar projects with brilliant public teams. And on the other end, you have total, absolute garbage. So we need a system to tell them apart.
So think of this next part as your own personal field guide. By breaking altcoins down into a few main categories, we can start to make sense of all the chaos and actually understand what we're looking at.
This table pretty much maps out the whole landscape. So up at the top, you've got your blue chips, like Solana. These are established platforms trying to be the foundation for future apps. Next up are utility tokens, like Chainlink. These are like the workhorses of crypto. They provide really specific, vital services. Then we get into the Wild West, meme coins, like Dogecoin. Let's be real, these are pure speculation. They're basically lottery tickets. And then at the very bottom, you have the scam coins, which are designed for one thing and one thing only, to take your money.
Okay, so knowing the categories is one thing. That's a great start. But when you're looking at a specific coin online, how do you actually figure out if it's a blue chip in the making or just another scam waiting to happen? This is where you have to become a bit of a detective. You need a simple, repeatable checklist you can run through for any potential investment. So let's build that checklist right now. Let's walk through this. First up, the team. Are they anonymous, hiding behind cartoon pictures? That is a huge red flag. Real projects have real people with reputations on the line. Second, the use case. If you can't explain what the coin does in one simple sentence, that's a problem. Third, the community. Is it just a bunch of people hyping the price on social media, or are developers actually in there, building stuff and posting updates? Fourth is tokenomics. Now this one sounds technical, but it's crucial. It just means who owns all the coins. If the founders are holding like 80%, they can crash the price whenever they want. And finally, age. A project that's managed to survive a brutal crypto bear market, well, that proves it has some real staying power.
Okay, so now that you know how to look for good projects, let's talk about the single most important thing for any beginner, and that's survival. How do you not lose everything?
And this chart, this just shows you the reality of the market. Just look at where the money is. Nearly half of it is in Bitcoin, with another huge chunk in Ethereum. All those other 20,000 altcoins, they're all fighting over what's left. This tells you that the market sees Bitcoin and Ethereum as fundamentally safer bets. And this is what we call the altcoin cycle. They are basically leashed to Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin is doing great, money flows into altcoins, and yeah, they can have absolutely explosive gains. But, and this is a big but, when Bitcoin falls, altcoins fall way, way harder. We're talking 80, 90, even 95% losses, wiped out. So the most important point is this. Just compare these two approaches. The smart strategy for beginners is to build a solid foundation in the more established players, Bitcoin and Ethereum, first. Get a feel for the market. The losing strategy? That's jumping straight into some random altcoin you saw on TikTok, chasing a quick profit without doing any real research. That's how people lose everything. And beyond just strategy, there are some very specific warnings that should have you running for the hills. If you see any of these, just turn around and walk away.
Let me be perfectly clear. Nothing is guaranteed, ever, especially not in the most volatile asset class on the entire planet. This is the #1 sign of a scam, period.
So, you see a celebrity promoting some new coin. Remember this, they were paid a lot of money to do that. It is an advertisement, plain and simple, not real financial advice. Half the time, they don't know or even care if the project is legit.
Get in before it's too late. This is your last chance. Legitimate long-term projects do not need to use these high-pressure sales tactics. Scams rely on creating FOMO, that fear of missing out, to make you act emotionally without thinking.
So, let's boil it all down. What are the key takeaways? We've learned that altcoin is just a simple name for any crypto that isn't Bitcoin. We know the quality ranges from world-changing all the way down to criminal. That's why you have to use that 5-step checklist to do your own research. And please remember those red flags. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Most importantly, seriously consider building your foundation with the big two, Bitcoin and Ethereum, before you even think about venturing into this much, much riskier territory.
So, you now have a framework for understanding this crazy market and a checklist to help keep you safe. You know what to look for. In our next explainer, we're going to cover the practical side. How do you actually buy your first crypto safely and securely? We'll see you then.